Hello, friend. I'm Avinash. Today we are going to talk about the cloud storage. Um, so we will try to understand like what is cloud storage and what kind of data we keep in the cloud storage, and we'll try to compare the local storage versus cloud storage and look for the advantage and disadvantage of both. So So the first thing, what is cloud storage? So it's basically a storage as a service. So the cloud provider will provide like a storage, like you can buy 1 TB, whatever. You can buy them in bulk, and you can use them later on your VM when you configure them. You can just create the drive from your storage you have bought from the cloud provider. So it's basically a service model in which data is maintained, managed, and backed up remotely and made available to user over the network. So they are like remotely available somewhere. So you on the cloud storage you buy them in, as I said, in bulk, and then basically you can use them in your VM. So we showed that example yesterday where we were creating the VSD. So it's a similar kind of thing, like we buy, for example, we buy like a 1 TB of hard drive, and then on that hard drive, we create multiple VSD file of like 20 GB each or 30 GB each. And then those VSD file can be used on the several other machines. So it's a very similar concept, no different. But the only thing is on the local, it is available locally, and on the cloud, it is available on the network. So before we understand the storage, we need to understand what kind of data we store on the hard drives. So they are mostly classified as either hot data, cool data, and the cold data. So it's basically this particular terminology is based on the usage. For example, hot data, which is basically I'm accessing on a daily basis. For example, my emails or like the current email or the document I'm working on, or anything like any project I'm working on, or on the some design, or whatever I'm accessing frequently, like for my software, some software I'm like a mail software or anything like that. That's like accessed on a daily basis. So we classify them as like a hot data. Cool data is some document you after the project is finished, or you're only using them for reference. So once in a month or something, you go there, access it, you create some report, and for that year particular, you're accessing that report sort of like on a monthly basis or some. So then that's classified as a cool data. So the hot data basically constitutes only very, very small chunk, including the cool data. So as mentioned, it's basically 1 to 5% is the hot data, and 5 to 10%, 15% is like a sort of cool data. In most of the, or even more than 50% organization, that basically the hot data is merely 1%, and cool data is merely 3 or 4%. And the rest of the 95% of data, cold data. So which is basically some data, there's a lot of data we access like once in a year. For example, you have some application installed on your PC, which you may be accessing once in the blue moon. I can't say an application. There are lots of application like which we install and never use it. And sometimes we think like, oh, I need to basically do something. Maybe I'm bored. I have got a paint application, but I don't do painting often. But once I'm bored, like nothing to do, and I just open the application and I did some painting, and then after that I forget it for a year. Uh, so there are loads of another example could be the report data. Once the report data um, year-end report is finished, you may not be accessing that report frequently. Maybe by the next year end or comparison, we may access that report for just to compare a 2 year end data. And there are many more examples. But this kind of data constitutes almost like 85 to 95% of organization data. So now we basically know, like we'll use these three terminology when comparing both local storage and the cloud storage, hot, cool, and cold. So let's look at the local storage and the cloud storage briefly and see what advantage we can get from the cloud storage over the local storage. Well, I'm not going to say that local storage has got is bad or anything. Based on the design, architecture, in few places, local storage can give you more potential than the cloud storage. You know, in some sort of like a security or anything. But um, I've not brought those topic in this discussion because we are just comparing the storage, and my focus is only like what exactly a local storage refers to and what the cloud storage refers to, and briefly comparing them together just to understand like what advantages and how cloud storage can help us to bring down so many hurdles we see in the local storage. So the one of the thing is like which everyone basically consider the cost. Uh, all projects are cost driven, so this plays a major role. For the local storage, you have to pay upfront cost. So you have to basically do the analysis and see how much storage you will need for a year or 2 years. And based on that, you buy that kind of a storage to support you for 2 year or 3 years, and you have to pay all the money upfront. So, and this is majorly done on the basis of uh, by looking at the data and guessing how much storage the one particular application or the whole organization will fill up. But in reality, you'll find that almost 40% of the storage purchased is not used, but you have to pay that price upfront. Whereas in cloud storage, you don't have to pay any upfront costs, so you only pay for what you need. And if, for example, if for today, based on the today consideration, you probably need like 100 gigabyte data, and you add on extra like 20% contingency, then you just get that data. And once you are basically close to the using up all the space, you can buy more space. You don't have to pay. You don't have to basically do the whole analysis for how much data you will how much storage you will be using in next 3 years. We do the calculation based on the next 6 months. So it brings down all that analysis part and save time. And also, you're not paying upfront cost. You are only paying for whatever you're using. So the cold data, which we said like it's almost like 95% of the data in most of the organization is cold data, and which is basically sitting on that costly storage. Well, definitely when you're buying the storage, um, most of the time you probably end up buying the same kind of a storage to store all three type of data. So it means like all your 95% of the cold data will be sitting on that expensive hard drive. Whereas cloud storage, there are lots of software, and the provider, they provide like a data reduction technique, which can basically bring down the size of like the hot data, and then move the cool and cold data on the less or inexpensive type of inexpensive storage. So using that software, you can bring down the cost significantly compared to where in the local storage, all your data is sitting on the expensive storage. Another main topic is the backup time. So in the local storage, you need a staff, you need a proper planning, you need basically a strategy um, to basically to back up the data. How frequently you want to back up the data? There are people looking after the process. If process fail, then someone is following up. So it's like a day-to-day struggle. And we know like the backups are very important. Like if something happens, like in a disaster, case of disaster or anything, like in any failure, the backup help us restoring the system. So there is a constant struggle to bring down the backup time. Whereas in cloud, it's done by the cloud provider. So it's automatic backup. And the last topic in comparison I want to bring in is like the migration. We all know like the kind of storage get outdated in like 3 to 5 years. The technology is moving so fast. So every 3 to 5 years, you have to go through the cycle where you are doing the storage migration, upgrading your hard drive, upgrading software. The team is working day and night, looking after the migration. There's a big project running in the company just for the migration itself. And that particular process can take up to 2 months to 6 months, maybe longer in few companies where you have to migrate maybe like 50,000 servers or 100,000 servers. You can think like how much work and how much manpower will be required to do such kind of things. Whereas in the cloud storage, the vendor manages all the data migration. If they have to upgrade the hard drive, or I want to upgrade the hard drive, I can just do with the click of a button. And also it's regularly data is backup. So, so that migration is basically just a part of using the software and assigning your drive to in a new type of drive, or the vendor upgrading the drive itself. Um, so you can see, like, we're saving on the manpower, we're saving on the headache of doing the project planning, and all that is saved by just using the cloud storage. So hope you like the session. Thank you all. Thank you.